Tonight on a special presentation of the magical world of Disney.
The grand opening of the Disney-MGM Studios theme park.
The Disney-MGM Studios theme park grand opening.
Disney parks have proven time and time again that they're by far the best choice when it comes to theme parks, offering a fully immersive world that offers entertainment, dining, and attractions. The parks have only been growing since they've been introduced in 1955, with Disney World making its debut in 1971, followed by Epcot in 1982. In 1989, Disney created probably the most subversive themed land in its history, titled the Disney-MGM Studios, which operates to this day. However, in 2014, many major changes began to happen at the park, and what we are left with are new sections and rides that are changing the area forever, putting its original status in the shadows. When talking about Disney World, I often regard their third park to be my personal favorite, but with all this construction happening, my question is, what happened to Disney-MGM Studios? To understand this park, it's important to understand everyone's favorite CEO at the time, Michael Eisner. This man may be the butt of many jokes nowadays, but when he first took the job in 1985, he really was an important factor in turning the progress of the Disney company around. With multiple flops in the film and park business, Disney took a chance at the first outside hire in the company's history. Eisner was a man of show business and extravaganza. He had a love for the movies and knew exactly how to take advantage of the film history and nostalgia to create a profit. One of his first jobs was to help make Epcot more successful, which hadn't been doing so well at the time. Epcot was the original idea that Walt Disney had when he purchased the land in Orlando, but investors wanted a safe idea to profit off of before taking a financial risk with an experimental prototype city of tomorrow. The deal was made to make an almost carbon copy of Disneyland in Florida, which would help secure the funds for his city project. However, Disney would pass away in 1966, so these dreams were sadly never realized. After Magic Kingdom was a huge success, it was decided that Epcot would go forward, but as an educational experience with different countries and technologies to be showcased. They made a large enough space to even do the prototype city if the park was successful, but bad marketing, lackluster attractions, and an overall unappealing look when compared to Magic Kingdom made Epcot a failure, which was troublesome since Disney was already in bad shape, so the prototype city was scrapped, and when Eisner became CEO, he pushed the Imagineers to create new pavilions and introduce the Disney characters into Epcot in order to get more people to come. Imagineers came up with the Wonders of Life Pavilion and an entertainment pavilion which would feature the Great Movie Ride. However, Eisner got different ideas in his head about a pavilion dedicated to the entertainment industry and decided that it should be an entire park of its own. It's hard to imagine that a failing company would want to create a brand new park when the last one was a commercial failure, but there's a number of reasons as to why Eisner did this. For starters, it could help bring more people to Disney World, which had just grown from a Disneyland-sized park to a large resort that offered 2 theme parks. They needed traffic to help make this an appealing trip. Another reason was that the park could be built relatively small and cheap enough to warrant an easier success, which may be why the park is so much smaller in comparison to the other Disney parks. But I think the main reason is probably because Universal Studios was in the planning stages of building their own park in Florida. Eisner already had information on Universal Studios Orlando when he was at Paramount, since MCA, the company that owned Universal at the time, didn't want to put money forward on their own to finance a park, so they were attempting to get some outside help from other studios, which included Paramount. So when Eisner was hired at Disney, it made sense that he would want to take advantage of the upcoming rival by creating a similar park, not only with the premise of riding the movies, but like Universal Studios Hollywood, Hollywood, it would contain a working studio, something which would tick off the guys at MGM. In an attempt to create notoriety, Disney made a deal with MGM in 1985 to make use of its name and logo to create Disney-MGM Studios, a tribute to classic cinema. This is also where Eisner made deals with other studios to create attractions at Disney. Remember, this was the 80s, Disney didn't own half of the entertainment industry yet, so Eisner made separate deals with 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, Lucasfilm, and Paramount to take advantage of their own back catalogs to create immersive experiences that went beyond Disney. The notable exception was, of course, Universal, who began construction in Orlando, apparently where Eisner would sit outside the fence perimeter looking at the progress of the park. Disney kept their plans under the wraps until Universal made an official announcement of their own park, so Disney was able to beat them to the punch, opening their park a year earlier than Universal in 1989. MGM was not happy though, discovering that Disney was using the park as a working studio as well, filming movies like Ernest Saves Christmas even before the park opened. MGM would end up suing for violating their agreement. Disney would even file a countersuit later when MGM responded by creating their own failed theme park, the MGM Grand Adventures. So already, tension grew between MGM and Disney.
Welcome to the grand opening of the newest, most fantastic attraction at Walt Disney World, the all-new Disney-MGM Studios theme park.
The park opened having only two attractions, the Studio Backlot Tour and the Great Movie Ride. The original Backlot Tour, an obvious ripoff of the Universal tours in Hollywood, was originally a 2-hour-long look at the behind-the-scenes production of films, props, and sets. However, this would die down in the following years, especially when the working studio was permanently removed from the park. The park continued to grow with Muppet Vision, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set, the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, Star Tours, and the fireworks show opening later. These were additions that made the park worthy. As the company became more successful, more expansions happened, like Sunset Boulevard, which featured the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and eventually the Rock and Roller Coaster. There was even plans for a Roger Rabbit ride, but it sadly never came to fruition. But tributes to the Robert Zemeckis film are found all over the park, even to this day. There was the Beauty and the Beast stage show and Voyage of the Little Mermaid, both very rushed and low-grade productions. They had other properties make visits to the park, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ace Ventura, and the best addition to the park by far was Fantasmic, which, unlike the Disneyland counterpart, featured stadium seating. By 1999, it was an excellent park with some of the best rides Disney had to offer, and streets designed after old-school Hollywood, so it makes sense that I found this to be the best park at Disney. So, what happened? Well, for starters, during Walt Disney's 100th birthday celebration, they erected a giant Sorcerer's Mickey hat, which became an eyesore to guests. It was assumed that it'd be removed from the park after the celebration, but there it sat for another 14 years. There's speculation that it was put up to cover the Great Movie Ride, where the building was actually replicated after Grauman's Chinese Theater, since the owners of the theater may have had a dispute with Disney. While this may be discredited since the Sorcerer's hat was eventually taken down, and the Grauman's Chinese Theater is in plain view again, I can't help but feel that they are going to change the look of the building once Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opens next year, so perhaps there really was a tension between the two groups, but there's nothing to confirm that yet. I feel the Sorcerer's hat marked a downfall for the park, with the icon of the park even being changed from the Earful Tower to this ugly Sorcerer's hat. Other major changes began to happen too. The idea of having a studio in Orlando became either costly or inefficient, similar to what happened with Nickelodeon Studios, so eventually all entertainment productions were put to an end at the park, leaving many sound stages empty. They'd occasionally have things like One Man's Dream and The Legend of Jack Sparrow take up the spots, but in retrospect, they became giant wastes of space. The only major change would be Pixar Place, which would re-renovate a portion of the soundstage area to create Toy Story Mania, another huge hit for the park, but with the exception of this ride and the revamped Star Tours, there was almost no new attractions brought to the park for an entire decade. The park began to really show the signs of being 20 years old, and with no updates or renovations, renovations. When I went to the park in 2014, it was weird to see so many things that were obviously products of the Eisner 90s mindset, which for the most part I didn't mind. I liked that the park was outdated like this, since it gave me a chance to immerse myself in a decade I'd come to love but never really truly lived. Some of this stuff was weird though. The Honey I Shrunk the Kids playground area featured a poster for the TV series, which hadn't aired in almost 12 years. There were all these strange entertainment venues that took advantage of properties that would become immediately outdated, like American Idol or Drew Carey. The studio backlot tour was nothing more than a cool special effects show that featured old props and a costume department that only did cast member work now. The Great Movie Ride was my favorite ride of all time, but even that had signs of aging because it had this outdated final montage, something that they did eventually update in 2015, which was weird since it would close permanently only 2 years later. I can't help but feel that this ride is closing due to contracts soon ending with each of the individual studios that's involved in the ride, and Disney not needing outside properties anymore since they kind of own their own stuff now. I must have got lucky because while I was there in the summer of 2014, it was almost immediately after I left that things began to evolve. Eisner resigned in 2006, which allowed Bob Iger the chance to take the reins as CEO. Just like when Eisner took over in 1985, the Disney company was once again in disrepair, and our saving grace, Bob Iger, changed everything. I won't lie, I love Bob Iger and I consider him a genius, and if he ran for president, he would have my vote in a heartbeat. He's grown the company significantly, buying Pixar, Lucasfilm, and Marvel, but it was under his direction that Disney-MGM Studios would change its name to Disney Hollywood Studios. It makes sense since this would be nearly 20 years after the park opened, so MGM probably only had a contract that lasted so long for using its name, and since there was tension that grew after the park opened, it makes sense that they wouldn't want to continue working together. Or maybe Disney decided to change the name themselves. In 2014, the studio backlot tour closed, which was a major portion of the park, but surprised no one since it was so outdated. But this was only the beginning. Soon the Honey I Shrunk the Kids playground, the Lights Camera Motors stunt show, the American Idol experience, the Great Movie Ride, the Legend of Jack Sparrow, and One Man's Dream would all close in a matter of 3 years. Yeah, this left the park about half empty, so I'm surprised by anybody taking the time to visit the park now. Toy Story Land will be opening in June of 2018, and Star Wars Land will open next year, as well as Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. It's a good direction for the park, and it's giving way more choices than ever before, but I question why other things are not changing. Like, how about an updated Fantasmic that doesn't pay a 10-minute tribute to Pocahontas of all things, or an updated theater show, or getting rid of the Voyage of the Little Mermaid altogether. For as much as they're updating, there's other things that need serious changing, so I'm sure they're getting to that soon. As long as they keep that Roger Rabbit stuff, but could you please fix the window shade? It's depressing that no one will fix it. In any case, the original park is forever gone. Even the giant hidden Mickey, which the park was originally shaped as, is now only a deformed version of its original self. I'm excited for the changes, but I'm really glad I got to experience the park before everything closed, since it was truly the last thing standing from the Eisner era of Disney, and really had this 90s vibe to it all. I'm sure that it'll remain my favorite park once I visit again in 2025, to wait for the traffic to die down after Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens, but I can't help but pay tribute to the original park, and to remember, as Michael Eisner put it, not a place on a map, but a state of mind that exists wherever people dream and wonder and imagine, a place where illusion and reality are fused by technological magic. We welcome you to a Hollywood that never was
and will always be.
Thanks for watching this video. Thanks to Ryan for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to join him in getting early access to videos and have exclusive blogs, as well as getting your name attached to every video, then please click on that Patreon link, and thanks for the support.